While they can't vote, we do have Trustee Drystad and Trustee Carey on the phone. They're in Texas, right? You guys are down there working on housing projects?
I'm in Lincoln now.
Oh, Mike's back to Lincoln, okay.
Go Scott Frost.
All right, are we ready? Is the video back on?
We're going. We're good.
Okay. All right, the time is now 6:30 p.m. and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Mayor Connie Sullivan, Mayor Pro Tem Dan Greenberg, Trustee Jim Kerr, Trustee Wendy Miller, Trustee Julie Waugh, Town Administrator Victoria Simonson, Town Clerk Deb Anthony, Kathy Guckenberger, Town Attorney, Trustee Michael Karavis by phone, Trustee Barney Drystad by phone for the end of that call, and they remain on the line now. For the record, if any person has participated in the executive session, believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I ask that you state your concerns for the record. All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to general business. I just want to thank the audience for their patience with our need to have a discussion prior to moving on to general business. So the first item on general business is Resolution 2018-20. Will the clerk please introduce that item?
A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lyons of Colorado repealing Resolution 2018-11 and approving a revised ballot question to be submitted to voters at the regular ballot election to be held April 3rd, 2018, related to the imposition of lodging occupation tax for the Town of Lyons.
All right, you know what, I messed up. We're supposed to have audience business first. So I'm sorry, we'll back up. I don't know my question. Let's go back to audience business and then we'll move on with general business. So this is the portion of the meeting that anyone's welcome to approach the board and speak on any matters that are not on the agenda as a public hearing. There are no public hearings tonight. So if you'd like to approach the board, you can come forward now, give your name and address for the record, and each person will have 4 minutes. Anyone like to speak for general business? Or sorry, audience business.
John Muller, 212 Welch Court. I'd like to have it considered that the lights that are turned on at Mullen Park at night, especially on the parking lot, be either turned off or turned off earlier. I don't know why they're lit. It stays on until midnight. It's very dark sky unfriendly. I see no need for it. The park's closed. It's a pedestrian path that makes sense, but I wish that you would consider either turning them off or turning them off way earlier than they are now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience business? There's no public comment at that item, so this is your opportunity to speak.
My name is Craig Ferguson, 500 West Main Street. I came here with the intention to speak quickly to the lodging tax. I'm commenting kind of on behalf of the chamber, but also as a lodge owner. The chamber is trying to do a much better job of knowing when the board is going to be discussing business stuff related to the businesses downtown. I want to make 3 quick comments that we would have liked to have been. If we'd have done a better job of knowing what was going on, we'd have brought these comments up regarding the lodging tax. And I'll just go quickly through it because I know it's not necessarily relevant. First of all, you know, the lodging tax is something I'm familiar with. I think a lot of people are familiar with. Everybody's paid a lodging tax. In most of those circumstances, that lodging tax is collected. It's used as a tool to collect the resources from the various interests and then spend that money to promote those interests. For instance, in Telluride, they collect the lodging tax funds, all their marketing and tourism. So, you know, the dedication of that tax to help support the businesses is something I think the chamber would advocate for. I know that the board probably has the intentions of doing a stronger job of marketing the community going forward. You know, we've been talking with maybe you're familiar with the fact that a couple trustees and a couple staff members are meeting regularly to try to address some of the issues confronting our business community on how to be successful and how best to promote tourism long term and address the various events. I think And business owners can tell you that short-term occupancy, short-term lodging is really critical to the future success. A hotel would really help. And, you know, because we won't need employee housing if we don't start opening up businesses again. I think there's more businesses closed on Main Street when I'm in town. So those would be my comments. You know, the Estes Park has a tax just for marketing of 1%. We've got a tax just for the parks. And business community, I think, wants to make sure that we dedicate funds to promotion of our community, as opposed to just general fund.
Hello, Brian Esther, 215 Welch Drive, and I'm here representing Planet Bluegrass and also speaking to the lodging excise tax issue. I just want to make 2 points. One of which pertains to an item that is on the general business agenda for tonight, which is we would. It's really challenging for us in the way we budget and the way we price things to enact a tax that is becomes a tax on our festivarians midway through the season. So we're strongly urging that we just need 6 months more time to budgets. And I know budget's really important. You know, the changes made to the park leases certainly reflected the town's need to budget for make a long-term budget. So we would kind of ask similar. We'll be given at least 6 months. I think it reads January 1st, which is great, but 6 months is what we really appreciate to start implementing this tax. And then the second thing is really just a comment that the way that the ordinance reads right now in terms of what is a campsite, you know, is really vague and different from how we do things. And so I guess I just want the record to show that we're going to need to come to some kind of a mutual agreement in terms of how we pay that. And we certainly understand the motivation of this tax and finding a fair way to do it. We just don't want to be called into question how we're paying for it. So we want to work together with the town to find a way to do that. We certainly have our own ideas, and that we would, rather than, so the festivals work, we sell a camping pass, which is per person, not per site. And the ordinance is all worded around a campsite, which is defined as a specific site temporarily occupied by a person or group of persons within a campground. And such is not the way that we charge or track things or have any kind of an audit trail on that. And so the thing that we'll propose when we're able to talk to the town about this would probably be a tax on each camping wristband. So I just kind of want at least the record show that we're kind of talking about this and considering it, and that's how we would propose to move forward with that should the lodging excise tax pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on any business?
Amy Reynolds, 434 Reese, and I just wanted to speak as somebody who is considering doing short-term vacation rentals once they become legal, and so that's kind of new for me. I wasn't thinking about it before, but I actually have no problem with an occupancy fee, and I think it should be higher based on my own experience of traveling and going to other towns and seeing what that occupancy tax is. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close audience business, thank you. All right, now we'll go back to general business. So the clerk, would you please introduce the first resolution?
You want to start with 15 or do you want to go?
20.
Okay. So resolution 2018-20, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, repealing resolution 2018-11 and approving a revised ballot question to be submitted to voters at the regular ballot election to be held April 3rd, 2018, related to the imposition of lodging tax, occupation tax for the Town of Lyons.
All right, I'm gonna actually give a short report for this because I asked for this to be added to the agenda at the last minute. I was approached by Planet Bluegrass about some concerns with the timeline for implementing this tax. And, you know, essentially, the implementation hits right at the beginning of their festival season, and they've already sold tickets for this year based on what they thought the price was going to be. So I said I would bring the question to the board about whether the board is willing to change the implementation date on the tax to be January 1st, 2019, I'd also like to hear from staff about this proposed change as well. We would have to go back and amend the ordinance, so it means we need to go back and do a first and second reading and public hearing before the election, is my understanding. And my understanding from the town attorney is we do have time to do that if we wish to do it. We also discussed whether there were any other ways to help them, or could they manage their this change without us needing to take any additional action on the ballot question, since we just passed this. And so I'm sensitive to reworking things based on one business. However, I think this business does contribute an awful lot to our town's economy. I regret we didn't think about that at the time. So I thought it was worth at least bringing it to the board to see what the board's interest is in trying to accommodate this. I suspect that most people would be happy to have additional time as well to implement the change if it is successful. So I don't foresee, if we made the change, that we would get complaints from anyone. I think the other party of major interest is actually the town, since we may have budgeted for some of these revenues in our 2018 budget. So let me ask staff to weigh in first, and then I'll ask the board to comment.
Well, I also met with members from Planet Bluegrass, and I understand the implementation issue. I guess one of my questions would be, I thought the sales went into place in December, not January.
Oh, that's true.
So I think they'll have the same problem if you implement it in January of next year.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think we'll have to look at those dates a little differently, or it would give them time at least, I guess, to prep to include it in your sales.
As long as we can plan for it, it's really, we'll just bundle that into the price for next year.
So I'm fine if we need to do that. We did not budget the full amount this year at all, not knowing. I don't think we budgeted it was going to be extra because we didn't know if it was going to pass or not. So I don't think it will affect the 2018 budget. I do think at some point we will have to work on the definition of campsite to make sure that that is working for all the parties involved. But staff can support it, the implementation date being later if that's what the board chooses to do.
Trustee Miller?
I think that it would be fine to go through all of it again for the sake of the.
Trustee Kern? Yeah,
I have no problem with delaying.
Trustee Caravas and Trustee Drystad, I know you're on the phone and can't vote tonight, but since you voted for this, I think it's important we hear that you would be supportive if we wanted to take this on.
I am definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I just want to make, there's clarity, because the town administrator's question was my question. Would we be then saying that any lodging sold to be occupied starting in 2019 is subject to the tax? So if someone booked a short-term rental in November for Martin Luther King weekend here in town, that would be subject to the tax, regardless of when it's booked.
Correct.
So any ticket sold to any event that included camping, regardless of when that ticket was sold, if the camping were to take place in 2019, it would be subject to the lodging tax, should the lodging tax pass.
Correct. The report is of lodging furnished
Okay.
during the time, and the tax is
Right.
levied on that amount.
So that's not a, all right, that's the, I just wanted to really make sure that was clear. I have no problem with delaying implementation. I think it gives our small town business owners an opportunity just to get up to speed and be ready.
Just as a side note, I wanted to be sure that the board and the public was aware that in modifying the question for this resolution, the overall estimated amount was increased as well.
So I'll just, I agree. I think this is a small change. I do hope that when we go through this process, we won't be able to change the ballot question. So the changes we make to the ordinance need to be consistent and not change the ballot question. But I think we are changing the question with the intention of going back and making the ordinance match. So we just need to understand the limitations about what we can do with this process before we hit the April deadline, correct?
And as a preview of what changes would need to be made to the ordinance, it's the title, which mentions the June 1 date, and one section which says effective, right now it's worded as effective June 1, 2018, a tax shall be levied, and that will change to January 1, 2019.
Okay.
Or we could just say, strike the date and the tax shall be levied.
So we can subsequently go back, change the ordinance to redefine what a campsite is, with the individuals.
Well, you could. I have a couple of other ideas about how we could work with the business owners to make sure that it jives with the ordinance as currently worded.
Yeah, my preference there would be that we work on that with them in their contract and just put it and amend their contract to define how they're going to pay a tax when we do their next agreement with the town. I think it works for pretty much everybody else. A campsite is typically well defined as a campsite.
And that matches what's in your code already.
Exactly. So I think we can they're an exception, and so I do think we can probably take that on rather than trying to make the ordinance match. That would be my preference for that. But I'm perfectly comfortable changing the implementation date. So I think we've heard from everyone. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion.
I move we approve resolution 2018-20.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. And it passes 4-0. Thank you. All right, will the clerk please introduce the next item?
We're going back to the original number.
Yes, same. Yeah.
Resolution 2018-15, a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental joint agreement between the Town of Lyons, the State of Colorado, acting through the Department of Local Affairs, Division of Housing, concerning CDBG DR funds for affordable housing in the town.
All right, is there any staff report for this item?
There's been no change with this item. This intergovernmental agreement, IGA, came before this board very late in the day at the last meeting on January 16th. And this is an agreement with the Division of Housing of the State of Colorado and the town that sets forth the duties and obligations of both parties regarding the allocation and use of CDBG disaster recovery funds for affordable housing purposes.
All right, thank you. And I think I was primarily the one that asked for this item to be continued at the last meeting. And I think just to explain for the benefit of the audience what this means, that up to now, this $4 million that has been set aside for Lyons has really been managed through the Boulder County Collaborative. This IGA and another action that's being undertaken by DHSEM will move the management of these funds from the local collaborative to the state. And there are lots of reasons for why they're doing that, but the primary reason is it's been 4.5 years and things are winding down from an obligation standpoint through the collaborative. And so we also think the state can offer the town more resources to help us try to utilize these funds as we get near the deadline for expending them. So I think that, the things that gave me pause at the last meeting were just trying to understand the document. Again, we didn't get it with a lot of notice before the last meeting to go through it. And we did have a call with the state to clarify some of the questions that we had. Primarily, the couple things that are notable in here is that the idea that they are setting aside $4 million for Lyons is with the idea that Lyons is going to try to replace as close to 100 units as possible. That's about the number we lost in the flood. And so in order to actually expend all $4 million, we have to try to build as close to 100 units as we can. They've said that they will give us kind of a credit for 6 habitat homes. So if 94 was the best we could do, that would probably be sufficient. But if we can't build 100 or close to 100 or 94, and we can only build, say, 40, then we would get a sufficient amount of money to build 40 units, and the rest will be allocated to another community who has another project. The maximum amount of money that DR funds can supplement affordable housing is about $40,000 per unit. So if you do the math, that's how they came up with $4 million initially, is to say, we know they're gonna need to replace about this many units. The most we can give them from DR to build those to supplement the other sources of financing is about 40,000. So the average, more typical amount is that 10,000. So they are considering the fact that Lyons is unique, and property in Boulder County is not cheap. It's an expensive place to build, and so they are giving us the maximum they can justify. The other thing that's really important here is that the deadline to spend these funds is September of 2019. And we are at the end of stretching the elastic as far as we can in terms of keeping these funds in Lyons. And so the actions we're taking tonight are related to the fact that we have to take action to keep these funds allocated to Lyons, or we need to let some other community have them. And the other thing that's in this agreement, it spells out very clearly that in order to keep these funds in Lyons, we must sign a purchase and sale agreement for the properties that we're interested in by the end of January. So, I can tell you at the last meeting that we had, we were not in a position, and did not have a purchase and sale agreement in place to tell anyone about. We didn't have that until very recently. The LOI that we approved tonight was actually signed after close of business on Friday. So this has come together very, very quickly with a lot of hard work by the staff in the last 2 weeks. I doubt that the town attorney or the town administrator have slept since our last meeting. And I'm thrilled that actually we have managed to get this to this point tonight. So I think that this is the first of several things we'll talk about tonight, about where we are in this process, and also what will happen from here. But I do want to stress that this was not an intentional kind of, surprise, we've got something to pass tonight. It literally has been a minute by minute development in terms of how this has come together. But I also think the most important thing we can do is get parcels under control so that we can keep the process moving. And I guess I'm not one that really loves to use sports analogies, but if this were a game, we are shooting a 3-point shot at the buzzer to keep us into the game, to get us into overtime so we can spend these funds on Lyons. That's where we're at. So that's what the actions are equivalent to tonight. And I do want to just say, and then I'll let the other board members chime in, is I think we really need to thank Boulder County Collaborative and the state for not giving up on us. It's been 4.5 years, and they could have at any time said, you know what, we've got shovel-ready projects all over Boulder County. They could have given this money away and justified it easily. So I just am really appreciative that they have given us the time. This board, I also want to thank the trustees because we have met on this late. Many times, for about the past year. The information in this IGA is information we got from the state about a year ago. And we basically said we were going to talk about housing at every meeting until we figured it out. And so I think we go into tonight actually really excited to bring something forward. I know not everyone will feel that excitement. However, again, this is the first step in a long series of processes that have to take place. But I don't want to go on tonight without acknowledging how much work has gone into getting us this far. So those are my comments, and I fully support the IGA. I would like to amend that January date. I know they're saying no more time, but I think if we approve that with the request that they make that January, February, even so we have one more meeting to continue some work that we are doing, I think that would be a wise thing to put in the motion tonight. So I'm okay approving it with the motion, having a contingency to say, please ask that if we approved another possible project at the next meeting, or we're able to get another parcel under control, that they would consider that.
I think I'm comfortable with my discussions with the state over the last week that if we were to ask for an extension through the end of February, I think they would approve that. I think we should ask for the whole month and shoot for the Fed to have, if there's going to be another agreement, to have that at our next meeting.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I just think we should make it clear that they would be open to an extension should we get parcels under control now?
Yes, if we have, yeah.
We're not talking about just another extension so we can go back and think
No,
about
no,
it.
no, no. It's-
That's what I
it's
really
to-
want to make sure
Yeah,
that
to tighten up
everybody
the-
understands.
The negotiations that are in process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Any other comments?
I'm just happy that we're finally making some progress.
I would just add that one really important piece of having this IGA is that we're getting support and expertise that's going to benefit our goals. And so that's what else comes with this, not just deadlines, but also support.
All right, is there a motion to approve resolution 2018-15?
I move that we approve resolution 2018-15.
A second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? I'm sorry, trustee Drystad, trustee Carabas on the phone?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yes, absolutely. Delighted.
All right, thank you. All right, I will go and call for the votes. And it passes 4-0, thank you. All right, the next resolution is resolution 2018-16. If the clerk would introduce the item.
Resolution 2018-16, a resolution approving a purchase and sale agreement with property owner for potential housing development.
Do we, staff one start, or do you want me to start? Or?
Well, you've had the talks. This is a resolution to approve a purchase and sale agreement with Keith Bell for Tract A of Lions Valley Park, filing 8. Here.
It's with this entity, Lions Valley Park Inc.
Yeah, he is the president of Lions Valley Park, Inc. There's a whole board involved there. This purchase and sale agreement, Mr. Bell has signed it. It's contingent upon the board's action tonight. The property is currently, is already annexed into the town. It is already platted, and Tract A is platted for either single-family or multifamily units. Up to 43 multifamily units is what's in the subdivision improvement agreement that was entered into for this filing back in, as it looks quick, check the date. December of 2008 is when they entered into that subdivision agreement with the town. The purchase price right now is open based on the highest, or based on, it will not exceed the appraised value of the property. But Mr. Bell was not willing to have us conduct the appraisal until we were under an agreement with him for the property. So if this goes forward tonight, we will start that appraisal of the property. This also talks about, the intent of this is not that the town is gonna outright purchase this land. We would immediately go out for a request for proposals, if that's approved tonight on the agenda, to look for developers of affordable housing to purchase the land with the DR funding going toward that project. So, other additions, I can think of. We have 45 days to conduct the appraisal, a geotechnical survey of the property, and other necessary contingencies that the Division of Housing requires.
I'm sorry to interrupt, just on another note, there might be lots of people trying to stream in, and I don't see that working. Is anyone else able to stream it? Ariel, could you give it another, you're fine?
It's working on mine.
Okay, great.
Mine looks like it's working.
Then it's me, okay, moving right along.
Do you want to also just describe the for market rate developer piece of this and why
The
we
letter of
did the
intent.
letter of intent?
Okay, earlier on the agenda tonight, during the consent agenda, the board authorized a letter of intent to work with Mr. Bell and David Wickham, who is a real estate developer as well. Apparently, Mr. Wickham was already working with Mr. Bell on
tracks, or on lots 15 through 32. As part of filing 8, Mr. Bell did not, he wanted the two parties to work together so that we weren't stepping on each other's toes during this development process. So we do have a letter of intent with Mr. Wickham that we will work in good faith for us to develop potentially multifamily housing on Tract A. He would continue to look at market rate housing on the remainder of those parcels. We would share in the cost of infrastructure to take it up the hill to both of all the new development. And that if Mr. Wickham chooses not to proceed with the development of the platted parcels, that the town would get first option on those. And if we decide not to pursue Tract A, he would get first option on Tract A. So that was approved tonight to move forward with that letter of intent, working jointly with Mr. Wickham and Mr. Bell.
So I just want to add a couple things to that presentation. I think, I'm sure it was slightly confusing to see a purchase and sale agreement on our agenda tonight without a lot of detail. That issue is we needed to discuss these details first, and they came out since the last meeting, so the board had not had a chance to get all of this information and talk through it. So the one thing there's several advantages to being at this step, even though it's really equivalent to having a first right, if you will, or an option on the parcel to do all the due diligence we need to do to see if this is even viable. We have a lot of studies we need to conduct, and we have still further negotiation to do. So we will be working through all of those specifics as we go. There will be opportunities for public input in the process as we go forward. But what this does essentially is it allows us to do multiple things simultaneously. It also allows us to issue an RFP for the developer, which we can't do until we have a purchase and sale agreement. So Mr. Bell was very generous to sign an agreement with so many contingencies that it adds up to not too much of an agreement until we work through a lot of additional steps. I think the other thing it does is it lowers the town's risk financially to invest in all of these studies. It actually allows us to hopefully make these costs eligible for DR funding because we have a purchase sale agreement in place. So the other thing it does is it allows the tax credit application process to proceed timely. There are deadlines in May and June for 9% tax credits, which any developer is going to need to pursue. And so this also allows that process to begin. So it really just helps facilitate us doing things on a parallel track versus sequentially so that we don't jeopardize the $4 million, because if we get hung up at any step, the reality is we will need to let these funds go to another community. So I just wanted to stress that, this is again just the very beginning, and the board does have to take another action to close on the property. Can you describe kind
Well,
of?
typically that would be what would happen, but if we if the town has a developer under agreement with it for a project, then the purchase and sale agreement would be assigned to the developer, and at that point, the developer follows its own processes for closing on the property or approval thereof, and therefore the town would no longer be, it will have been released from the agreement upon assignment of the agreement. So, but should that not happen immediately, then the town, prior to closing on the property, would of course have additional public processes in place for the approval of the closing, just like we did with for example, most recently the wastewater treatment.
So I guess my thought is that we can have dedicated public comment for this project with or without action items on the agenda, just to make sure the public is getting noticed and making sure they can have an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So, any other comments from the board or questions from the board?
No, I just wanted to tell Ariel that the video is not working. I just got a text from somebody that was trying to watch it.
Okay, let me go check.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I would just comment that this is a great day for us to be able to move forward with something. We've been working on this a really long time. This is cause for celebration. It doesn't mean it's finished. It just means we're starting. So we're celebrating this this next first step. And I think we've all said we wanted to do this. And so many people told me in the past, I really want to support affordable housing, just not in the park. This is not in the park. So it's really clear to me that we listen to the public and essentially respond to what the public's input was. This is not new. This has not been a secret. This goal has not been a secret. Every single person who sits on this board supported pursuing affordable housing and using the $4 million. And in fact, 4 people who were part of the previous effort were re-elected to this board. So the public spoke. And I think that's really important to understand that no one ran and said, I'm completely opposed to any of this and won. The public put in place a board that was united and in this effort. So I think that's a really important part of this. And I know it's going to be a lot of hard work, and I appreciate everything staff has done recently, especially. And but I think it's a great way for this board to start to wrap up its final term. Its term.
Well, I guess, Bill, I think it's a great step. I think it's still very iffy that anything will result out of it. And I think, people have to understand that this is not a done deal by a long shot. And it will take a lot of hard work to try to overcome all the barriers that we're gonna come up against. But I'm definitely for it.
Trustee Careless? Any comments?
I'd like to say, the kind of the ditto along with Pro Tem Greenberg. We've been working for this. We said we were going to do it, and we're getting there. I would like to thank the mayor, the staff, and Kathy Guckenberger for all the hard work these last few days and weeks, pushing and getting everything together to get to this point. We do have a long way to go, but thank you for all your support and everything you've done to get us there, and let's keep going forward. Thank you.
Trustee Drysdale?
Yes, absolutely. I'm delighted that we're at this point, and hope that we just keep pressing until we get, all of the details ironed out and worked out, and keep moving.
Thank you. Trustee Miller?
I'm over the moon. I really am. I think this is the perfect spot to try and get something done. And it was actually added for that a long time ago. So it's kind of come full circle.
Yeah, I concur with everything that's been said. This is exciting for us. I echo Trustee Kerr's statement that it's a long way from being overdone and a sure thing. But I absolutely think this is the best project that has the best chance of making it through the process for 9% tax credits. I think I'm excited actually that Dave Wickham is a partner in this, hopefully. I mean, we still, again, have a long way to go. He still has a lot of due diligence to do for his own interest, but he's local, he lives in Lyons, he's part of our community. He understands our community, and I have no doubt that if we get this project across the finish line, it'll be something we're all really proud of. So with that, I would give staff an opportunity to share any comments. Anything else?
No, just I really appreciate actually keep working with us. It's sometimes difficult to work across state lines and those sorts of things, but to be able to work out an agreement with so many unknowns, I'm really happy. He is really excited. This was his vision for this area since the time he owned the property. And so he's excited to see that it might be a multifamily dwelling. He has full faith in Mr. Wickham and the designers that they'll do something that fits in with the neighborhood very nicely. And so it's exciting to move it forward. It's been on our list for 4 years.
I would like to ask the Mayor Pro Tem to make a motion.
I move we approve resolution 2018-16.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Take a bow.
All right, no, we're actually gonna have some discussion.
Okay.
So the next resolution was on the agenda in the event we actually had a second project to put forward. There are other projects that we are pursuing or hoping to pursue to come as close as we can to building 100 units. By February. We didn't quite make it to having a purchase and sale agreement ready for this evening, but the board would like to give direction to staff about the next steps with the other parcel we are interested in, or project we might be interested in pursuing. I think we've had some information come forward about the Eastern Corridor RFP that includes a component of affordable housing with it. It's too soon to say whether we can secure that, but we think it's also the next best viable project to meet the timeframes that we're working within and also build enough units to secure as much of the 4 million as we can. So we'd like to give staff direction to continue conversations with Thistle for that project and bring back to the board whether or not we think that project could be possibly the project that applies for the 4% tax credits. And so at the February 5th meeting, we could have the next step. That property is already owned by the town, so we don't actually need to purchase it, we need to sell it. And so, or assign it. So it's a slightly different process and different agreement, but I think the consensus is that we would like staff to pursue that and be prepared for February 5th. I do want to just add that we have other parcels that we are still working with that we are not ready to disclose because they're still in negotiation. So we're going to keep working on those and discussing those in executive session until we have a better understanding of how viable the Eastern Corridor and this property are. So we may not make it from a time frame perspective, but we're not going to throw in the towel on every parcel we've been working on just yet. So with that, I think staff has their direction. Do you need direction for the RFP?
It's written down as just direction to staff.
So that would also be part of our direction tonight, is to issue the RFP for a developer for the Bell property. With that, we didn't have any items removed from consent. Any other items?
I need to look at just one other minute, one other note.
All right.
And, the other action that was taken in executive session, was that you? Or did we come up with?
There was no action.
Okay.
That was the direction for the Eastern Corridor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Shortest meeting ever.
Oh,
We should record it. 7:12. Give them credit for a change.
Yeah,
big dinner plan.
It's on their website, it's on the town
You have a
website.
photograph that you would want to put pictures of the candidates with their correct name?